It's the same thing as last time. And it happened to a hero that wasn't all that well known to the public at the time, Iron Man. Being Marvel's first new creation in the year 1963, Iron Man, like some, started off as a one-off tale in another comic. Tales of Suspense number 39 introduced Tony Stark to the world. Later that same year, he became one of the founding members of the Avengers. And before the late 2000s, he wasn't really much of a household name, if you're young enough to remember. He was adapted only twice. The first time being in the 60s, and the second time was in the mid-90s, which is the show I'm reviewing today. This very series was my first introduction to Iron Man. I saw some episodes from Season 1 and most of Season 2's episodes as a kid, and now that I'm done rewatching the series, I can without a doubt say that I'm surprised the show didn't get canceled after one season. And I'm going to explain quickly why this is so I can move on to the good stuff. A lot of episodes don't really lead anywhere and aren't interesting or memorable. There's a couple that are decent at best, and actually follow the themes that the comics had. The characters had little to no depth in the first season. Also, instead of it just being Iron Man and maybe War Machine, there's a whole team of superheroes called Force Works, which had a comic that started and ended about the same length as this animated series. Across 13 episodes, the only hero that I sorta cared about, has some depth and development, is Iron Man himself. Aside from Iron Man, the rest are two-dimensional and heavily underdeveloped. Also, why is there a team in this show? It's called Iron Man, not Iron Man and Friends. The same can be said for the villains, as I thought every single one of them was evil for the sake of being evil, except MODOK. The voice cast is good though, between both seasons, but I think Season 2 delivers a better voice cast overall, as the voices just match better with their respective characters. Robert Hayes gives a great vocal performance throughout the series and is what I think Tony Stark would sound like. The art style is appealing in the first season, but the animation and action is pretty meh. Also, why is there a 3D character model when he suits up? It seems like a waste of CGI to me. Aside from maybe 1 or 2 episodes, I would say that this season is bland and very forgettable. As I said before, I'm surprised that this show got renewed for a second season, cause man, was this first season average.
Hunt him down, you reptilian jackass!
This show got paired with the Fantastic Four animated series as part of a Marvel Action Hour for Fox Kids. And while I think Season 1 for the Fantastic Four was bad overall, it at least had a few good episodes before the halfway point of its first season, while Iron Man's first season was consistently bad. In the end, both got revamps and a chance at redeeming themselves. And boy was it worth it rushing through Season 1. So I can enjoy and take my time with Season 2. The first episode of Season 2 is by far better than any episode from Season 1. So much happens, and is the beginning for multiple characters' journeys. For one, the groups are broken up. Forceworks disbands and only Julia and Rhodey stay after the latest stunt Tony pulls. The Mandarin group is disbanded because he supposedly dies, but he doesn't. he loses all of his mystic rings, and for the rest of the season is on a reclamation quest. Seeing the Mandarin be built up this way as he collects a new mystic ring at the end of each episode gives him more depth as he works hard towards his goal to collect all 10 mystic rings. Same goes for Tony Stark because of the fact that he does things on his own without telling his teammates. His team disbands, and it's a season-long arc for Tony to work with others in a team effort. He may seem calm, cool, and in control, but his conscience doesn't let him live peacefully throughout this entire season. Rhodey and Julia also get more depth as well, such as Rhodey giving up as War Machine because of his near-death experience, and then eventually returning because his friends need him. Julia's romance subplot with Tony is expanded upon greatly. Funny, seeing as Tony, Julia, and Wanda, yes, the Scarlet Witch, had a love triangle in Season 1 and did nothing with it. I was halfway expecting to see the love triangle done right in Season 2. I guess not. This series may have also taken place before Wanda and Pietro look for their father, Magneto, in X-Men the Animated Series. Since the Mandarin and his minions were out of the way after the start of Season 2, we could finally see other villains and storylines from the comics. One iconic storyline that's adapted is the Armor Wars. While the villains had different motivations, personalities, and power sets, I feel like they didn't use Iron Man's rogues gallery and possible storylines to their full potential. I would have liked to have seen more from the Beetle in this season than just a small one-off cameo in the Armor Wars. A whole episode would have been kick-ass. The art style is revamped and looked a lot closer to the comics in a way. Well, at least in that point in time. The animation was also given a huge boost too. It's really good. The action complements the story very well. The only heroes aside from the ones that were in Force Works that crossed over with Iron Man in the show are Nick Fury and the Incredible Hulk. I felt like this show was missing something. It was missing the Larry Houston effect. He was working on X-Men and Fantastic Four at the same time at one point, and I suppose an offer to work on Iron Man wasn't on the table. Whatever the case, some more cameos from fellow Marvel heroes would have been cool. At the very least, some mentions. Which we do get from time to time. I thought one episode where he could have crossed over with another Marvel hero was when Iron Man had to shrink down to the size of an atom to perform surgery on Hawkeye. That was the perfect opportunity to have Ant-Man and maybe the Wasp guest star, but it didn't happen. What also didn't happen for this series was a Season 3 renewal, as it got cancelled along with the Fantastic Four. Which is a real shame because both worked so hard to gain fan interest and viewership back. It just didn't pan out for either series. There goes another Marvel show that got cancelled after 2 seasons. It may have been cancelled just like the Fantastic Four animated series, but it also didn't have any plot threads left unattended, and Season 2 ended on a pretty high note. The 2-part series finale is great and didn't leave me disappointed. Also, Iron Man's series may have ended here, but he guest starred in other Marvel animated series within the next 2 years. I will give the Iron Man 90s animated series a recommendation. With that, true believers and newcomers alike, we are entering the halfway point of the 90s Marvel animated shows. Up next is the 90s animated adaptation of my favorite superhero of all time and everybody's favorite web slinger, The Amazing Spider-Man. I'm Lino Mars of the MSA Productions crew, and I'll see you next time.